This is The Locker Room, where the coaches of Husson University talk sports.
Hello everyone, I'm your host Nick Blazek, and this is The Locker Room, the show that introduces you to the coaches and athletes of Husson University. On today's show, we are pleased to be joined by assistant coach of the softball team, Kayla Merrill. Coach, first off, thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you.
Could you start by providing a background about yourself and roles here at Husson for people watching that may not know a lot about you?
So I started out my career here playing, and I was in nursing school. So I played here for 4 years, and then I wasn't quite ready to give it up, so I stuck around for, this will be my second year coaching-wise. And it's just kind of a different role to be in, but I love coaching the girls. It's a lot of fun.
You mentioned that you played 4 years of college ball here at Husson. What was it like as a freshman to enter a program that had won 3 consecutive North Atlantic Conference titles?
I didn't really know a whole lot going into it. I didn't really do a whole lot of research. I mean, I knew that this is where I wanted to go to school. But the girls are so welcoming coming in, and the upperclassmen kind of set the tone for what they wanted everything to go as. So it was really an easy transition for me to come in and play. I mean, I didn't quite have the playing time that I wanted to coming in just because we were so good as a team. But it was definitely a lot of fun to come into a team that had such a winning streak. I mean, it was awesome to be a part of that.
As a senior, you helped guide Husson to their 7th straight NAC title, and in the process became the first player in league history to win both NAC Player of the Year and Pitcher of the Year. How much work goes into earning those awards, and has it settled in at this point?
I mean, it's kind of settled in. It was a lot of work. I put in so much extra time, more time than just practice, and my sister was a big part in that. She played with me as well. So she kind of pushed me. We put in a lot of extra time, and Coach Hall pushed me, and Taryn pushed me. They were probably the 2 better coaches, but it was a lot of extra time. It wasn't just going to practice and then going home and studying. It was going to practice, putting in extra time, studying, and I really didn't have much of a social life other than like hanging out with my sister and practicing and being with my teammates, but it was a lot of work.
Following the historic senior run, you decided to stay involved with the program as an assistant coach. Aside from just not wanting to give it up, what made you want to do that?
I want to coach eventually, like be a head coach at the college level. So getting the experience and seeing actually what goes on outside of just being a player role. So in these past 2 years, I've really seen what it takes to be a coach and all the extra work that, you know, Taryn has to put in planning practices and, you know, planning trips and going away and everything. So it's a lot of extra work to be a coach. I didn't really realize as a player how much work it actually takes to plan all these things. You can't just go into practice and not have a plan, which you can do for most younger teams. But I've really learned a whole lot about coaching and just learning about that side of things, which is kind of cool.
How difficult was it to transition from being an everyday player to now a coach on the sidelines?
It was a little difficult to start out with because my sister was still on the team, and a lot of the girls that I had played with were still on the team, so they had a really difficult time starting to see me as a coach. This year it's a lot different than it was last year, but I didn't really say a whole lot last year, and I didn't really have as big of a role last year just because I was kind of transitioning, and the girls were transitioning into seeing me in a different role. So this year it's been a lot more active. I've been more active in the coaching role, but it was a little tough to start out with, but near the end of the year it got a little bit easier. But the girls and I really had like a hard time separating. I mean, they just didn't really see me as a coach yet. They still saw me as a player, which was hard.
You mentioned that you played 3 years of softball here at Husson with your sister. What was her reaction to you becoming an assistant coach?
I think it was a little bit easier for her. She surprised me in how well she kind of took it, and she would take my advice. I mean, she always took my advice throughout our entire playing careers, but she really took my advice if I would say, hey, do this, or hey, do that, because she knew that, you know, I had done the same things with her throughout her 4 years and throughout her entire career.
So that's just something that you two have naturally built over the course of your life because you grew up together in the chemistry that you've had.
Yeah, definitely. Her and I kind of understand each other, so we could just say one-word hints or whatever, and she'd be like, oh, okay, I got to do this, or she'd do the same thing for me. So it was kind of like an easy transition for her because we would help coach each other.
How much of a mentor has head coach Taryn Allen been in making you a better coach?
She's been huge. I mean, this year alone has been a big thing. Her putting her trust into me because I call pitches and I work mostly with the pitchers, which is a pretty big role to kind of step in as a second year out, you know, from finishing playing. So she's really put a whole lot of trust in me, and we've had conversations where she's been like, you know, you can say what you need to say to the girls and not have to worry about it. So this year has been huge. I mean, she's been a huge mentor in figuring things out, and she's made me have bigger roles in planning things and helping her plan things. And she'll ask me for my input, which is something that, after being only 2 years out and she had me as a player, was something that I wasn't. It surprised me at first, but it's she's been a good mentor.
Last year in the NAC tournament, Thomas ousted Husson 6-1, ending the streak of consecutive titles. As a coach, watching the game unfold, how hard is it knowing that there's nothing I can do to directly impact the game and bring the team back when they're struggling?
It's definitely hard. Sometimes it just happens, though. Sometimes there's always going to be better teams, and sometimes you get outplayed, and that just happens. And it's hard as a coach to not be able to do anything, especially as you're coming out after being a player, where you could directly, impact the game. But it's a little bit harder to kind of step back as a coach and not be angry, which is something that I've learned over the past 2 years a lot, that there's not a whole lot sometimes that you can say to kind of change how things are going. So that's been kind of one of the bigger things that I've had to learn.
Had to take a little bit more of a backseat role and just
Yeah.
kind of add commentary.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll look at how the Eagles have been doing in spring training and what lies ahead for the rest of the season. We're back in a flash. Stay tuned.
Right, mi cariño. So like I said, everything I learned about cooking, I learned from Grandma's empanadas. Shall we go again?
Yep.
Mix beef with the onions with the peppers with the paprika with the garlic with the oregano with the cumin. Got it?
Got it.
Throw on the olives, stir, season, stir again, pour out the flour, roll out the dough, make a circle, drop in a fistful of filling, fold over, press down, and ta-da!
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Welcome back to the locker room. I'm your host, Nick Blazak, as we continue our conversation with assistant coach of the softball team, Kayla Merrill. Now, Coach, prior to the break, we were talking about that 6-1 loss to Thomas College in the NAC tournament last year. As you prepare for this season, the NAC releases the preseason coaches poll, with Husson finishing second behind the reigning champions of Castleton. How much stock do you put into this projection?
We don't really put too much into it, just because we try to focus the girls on what our goals are and what we see as our team goals are, which are obviously to take back that title. I think a lot of the times they don't understand the freshmen that we have coming in, or any of the teams really have coming in. So it's really hard to kind of guess what teams are going to do, especially you can have some really good freshmen coming in, which this year we did. And we had a transfer for one of our pitchers. She came in from St. A's. So we really had a lot of new people coming in. So it's hard to kind of put a guess on how you're going to do when you don't know how the freshmen are going to perform.
The Eagles soar to Florida for the spring training trip and come away with the best record in Florida in the Sunshine State since 1995, with a winning record of 9-5. What does that say about the competitiveness of this team?
This team's going to be good. We're pretty young. We've got a really great pitching staff this year with, Alana's got that support behind her this year, where she's not going to have so much pressure on herself to do well. She's going to have a couple other people behind her who are going to help her out and support her. And we've got some really great freshmen that played really well in Florida, and we expect them to, keep that going when they come back. Overall, it's going to be a good couple of next years, just because the girls are going to be so good, building off of this year. Florida trip was great just because we got to see how well they can actually play.
You mentioned the play of Alana Healy. She earned NAC Pitcher of the Week for her performance down there. 5 games, 4 complete game victories. What allows her to be so dominant?
I think this year she's really started to understand the movement of her pitches and hitting spots, which is awesome for her, because in Florida she pitched so great. There wasn't many pitches that I couldn't call for her, and it's awesome when those kinds of things happen. But I think Alana's really kind of starting to understand that she has support this year, so she can really just go out and hit her spots, and she's really turning to be a great leader for the other girls to kind of see what it means to pitch in college, because a lot of these girls coming in threw fast, and they didn't really understand the fact of spinning the ball or hitting your spots. And Alana's really showing them that it's not just all about speed, it's spin and hitting your spots. So she did really well in Florida with just those 2 things, and it really worked out for her.
Husson outscored opponents 88-42 down there and compiled a 4-game winning streak, including 2 mercy victories. How did those type of victories instill confidence in this team?
I think the girls really figured out how to hit. Like, they were hitting the ball really well, and that 4-game win streak or whatever, they did really well hitting, and I think that this is going to be something that's going to continue on with this team. We're a great hitting team. The freshmen can really hit the ball. You know, the seniors are doing really well and connecting with the freshmen, and just the overall gameplay of this team is, you know, amazing. They're all play really well. Even the younger kids, they don't play like they're freshmen.
How important is spring training for determining your lineup in those crucial conference games?
I mean, we see who can play where and who does what to start out as. Obviously, we put a lot of stress on practice, and you have to practice well, and you have to come to practice. And so when we come back from spring training, if things kind of start to fall off the table or the girls stop working hard because they think that they're going to start every game, then we'll kind of talk to them. And I mean, the lineup can always change depending on who we're playing and, you know, who's doing well at that time or whatever. So we don't really put too much stress just on the Florida trip. I mean, we keep it in the back of our minds who did well, but we still kind of like to move forward and make the girls still work hard and still try to earn it every single game.
All right, Coach, we have about 30 seconds before break, but I want to ask you this last question is, it's been, when April 1st hits this Saturday, it'll have been 3 weeks since you guys have last played a game of softball. What are you doing to get players ready and prepared for the home opener against Colby?
A lot of scrimmaging. We like to keep practices light. Yesterday during practice, the girls played tag, and they played a couple other games to kind of warm up, keep things light, keep them, you know, wanting to still practice hard. We put a lot of emphasis on practicing hard. Yeah, we may not go the whole 2 hours, but if you practice really hard for this hour and 15, 20 minutes, then, you know, we'll get out of here early. We scrimmage a lot. We do a lot of live hitting, which kind of helps the girls stay, you know, in tune and want to keep working hard. All that stuff's important to try to keep them working hard, but sometimes, you know, you have lapses in practice when you have 3 weeks where you don't play a game. It's kind of hard for the girls to stay focused, but they've been doing a great job since we got back at trying to stay focused and get their jobs done. All
right, Coach. Well, thank you for coming on the program.
Yeah,
Appreciate having you here.
Thank you.
That's it for this segment, but when we come back, we'll recognize the Husson Athletes of the Week. Stay tuned.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Get caught buzzed driving, and you could do some hard time.
Craig, knock it off.
Sorry, Mom.
It could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And that could set you back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to the locker room. I'm your host, Nick Blazek. Before the break, we were pleased to be joined by assistant coach of the softball team, Kayla Merrill. We now turn our attention to the Husson Athletes of the Week. Congratulations to Alana Healy of the softball team and Francesco Wright of the outdoor track and field team. That's all the time we have for this episode of The Locker Room. We would like to thank Kayla Merrill for coming on the show today. If you'd like to watch this episode or any previous episode again, you can visit our NESCom journalism channel on YouTube. For everyone working hard behind the scenes, I'm Nick Blazek. Have a great rest of your day.